Hello, my beautiful rock stars. It's your girl, Rocqi, your revolutionary hippie from Life is Rocqi. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and welcome to another episode of my polyamorous journey. Yes. So loved having non-monogamy visibility week. It was so replenishing to my spirit to just be in space with my community, y'all. Just a whole lot of non-monogamous. Like, yes. Can we get more of that, please? Yes. Love it. I love the week of visibility for non-monogamy. Thank you, Open, the Organization for Polyamory and Ethical Non-Monogamy, for just facilitating that. Thank you for all of the organizers and volunteers to make the global and virtual events, 40 plus events over that week happen. Definitely glad to be a part of this moment in history, because yes, it is a moment, y'all. And I am going to do another long form video about some of the lessons that I learned just going to these events. I'm really excited about it. But all right, so today I'm going to be discussing my boundaries within polyamory. My 1-year-old is crying, so okay, we'll see. It's getting to be her nap time. I was trying to record this before I gotta lay down and smush my hair and stuff. But all right. So first and foremost, I would like to say that your boundaries are allowed to evolve within polyamory on your journey of polyamory, okay? How I started isn't exactly where I am now, and I'll clarify that. But first, I think we need to establish what are boundaries, because a lot of people have this confused. A lot of people confuse boundaries with rules. Rules are, I'm controlling another person outside of myself. You cannot. Boundaries are, this is my comfort zone. This is my safety net. This is where I feel respected. And if you do something that is against these things, then I will have to enforce consequences. And that may look different depending on what the boundary is. And then you have agreements. Agreements are mutual. It's saying, hey, this is my boundary. Does that align with you? Are you willing to meet this boundary? And then if you are able to, have compatibility in that or be able to compromise, then there's a mutual agreement. There's no coercion. It's consensual, because it is all about consensual non-monogamy, y'all. Okay. So that being said, let me know if you need clarity on boundaries. I feel like I did a more in-depth discussion of boundaries on my Manifest Realities Happiness Coaching playlist, where I talk about balance and boundaries within my sister circles. I'm pretty sure I've talked about it in other contexts, but I know I did an episode on that. So check that out. I'll probably link it as well, for sure. But anyways, so one of the boundaries that I had starting off at the gate that still continues to this day, and is actually a very common practice amongst a lot of the people within this community, is to see STI test results prior to engaging with new sexual partners. Okay, so not only am I hearing you say what your results were, I'm seeing the evidence of what your results are. And this is so common practice that it's not, there's no shame, there's no secrecy, there's no silence. It's, yeah, here's mine. Let me show you. I want to see yours, but let me show you mine. It's a very common practice, because we do want to be safe. We do want to be protected. Okay. So not only are we seeing new test results prior to engaging with new partners, but we're also regularly getting tested. So for me, it's every 3 months, especially if my husband has another partner. But usually I get tested annually. And I actually, if he's not having a partner, but I just had to clarify with my doctor, because every physical I'd be asking for an STI panel, and she was basically like, why? And I was like, oh, I'm polyamorous. So I had to come out to her, and then some effed up stuff happened, because I was seeing my results and her communication of the results did not match the result. And I was like, what you mean? And then she was like, oh, I shouldn't be rushing with my text to speech. And I was like, is this because I'm polyamorous? Like, really? You had to mess up that way. Scared the bejesus out of me. But anyways, the girl's all good. Okay. And I will say that I love that this is a practice within the ethical non-monogamy polyamorous community, because it needs to be. Why isn't it a practice within the monogamous community? We never talked about testing. We talked about condoms and barriers and birth control, but we never talked about testing in the monogamous community, which I identified with for 26 years. So, and I started having sex when I was 16. So that's 10 years of having sex. And it just wasn't a common practice, okay? I didn't started having sex since I was 16, and I used condoms, but it was to prevent pregnancy. It wasn't for STIs. And luckily I was good because I didn't start getting tested regularly until I went to college because they offered it. But that first time I was like, why the heck haven't I been testing regularly? I could have been out here in these streets. Oh my goodness. But luckily your girl is good, and we are changing language from clean because we don't want people who are infected to be perceived as dirty. They're not. They're just infected. Okay. So changing language around that. So whether positive or negative with the results, that kind of thing can help eliminate some of that shame that's associated with it and that feeling of dirtiness. So anyways, testing before new partners, and then regularly testing and sharing those results, especially if you're adding new partners. And then, of course, barrier use. That is a very complicated question depending on what body parts you have, depending on whether or not it's closed or polyfidelitous, not necessarily in a triad, but, things like that. It just gets a lot more complicated and specific. For myself and my husband, people take issue with it, but the term right now is fluid bonded. I don't know another term, but we don't use barriers. We have a child, so we don't use barriers, but and that child was planned, okay. But yeah, so barriers, whether that's condoms, dental dams, gloves for digital sex, fingering. So yeah, using barriers can also assist, but that is more of a conversation depending on your individual dynamics. My husband does use barriers with his other partners. For me, I have used gloves with the women that I've been with, but I also just would like to receive test results. So there's that part. And then let's see. So in addition to sexual health, there's also hygiene that is good for me. So I obviously, after my husband has had sex with someone, I need him to shower, change the sheets, all of that. So that part. Now, he was fine with all that. He was agreeable to that boundary, willing to meet that boundary. However, my boundary changed or expanded when I noticed he came home from a date and he had smelled of the woman's perfume. They hadn't had sex, but they, cuddled. So he, carried her scent, and it was so overpowering for me. And I was like, yeah, I need you to shower in those instances. But he didn't agree to that boundary because he thought, he was like, well, I'm not dirty or anything. Like, I don't, like, it makes me feel ashamed of having this connection. And I was like, okay, so in order to respect my own boundary, which is, I don't want to smell that. So we have to take space after that time. He's not willing to shower in those specific instances, and I also need to respect my boundaries. So we just take space from each other, and we're not cozy, we're not hanging out. I take a me day, basically. So yeah, so that would be an example of that. So a big boundary change in relation to my practice of polyamory, because initially I desired kitchen table polyamory with my metamors, but now I am strictly parallel polyamory with my metamors. If anything, garden party, but it got to be specific certain circumstances, or birthday party. But we started off, like, we deep dived to, like, we have individual bedrooms to begin with. But he was having sex with a woman in his bedroom, and we live on a 1-floor house, and I was aware that was happening. It was a lot on me emotionally, and I realized that's a boundary for me. I'm not okay. And there's no amount of deprogramming for mononormativity. There's no amount of emotional work, working on my regulations. It's just not within my comfort zone. And that's okay. That is okay. So that being said, before we had our daughter, it was, I need to be out of the house. But then it got to, like, where am I going type of thing. So that came into some issue. Sometimes I will go for a walk, I'll go to the movies, go shopping. But if it got to be like an overnight situation, it was just better for him to go over there. So like I wouldn't have to check into a hotel or something like that. So for the most part, he just went over to my meta's house. And then yeah, so that was a boundary that changed for me. Also, when he was having someone over, we have 2 separate entrances. So I would ask them to go through the back door because my room is right by the front door. So I would like, here, come in, hear the whole conversation. Again, I'm trying to practice parallel, keep it pushing. So that was the case. And I think the request of consideration was my bathroom is the common bathroom. So I was just like, make sure I'm trying to keep it parallel. Just, take a peek. All right, you good. But yeah, let's see. I think outside of that, the only other real boundary I had was communication. And a distinction about that is I had to learn, because first it was like discuss everything, and then I realized I don't need everything. I need when you're going on a date, and make sure that fits in with, our family plans and stuff. I need to know, I do need to know where you are, especially if it's at night, just for safety. And if there's an emergency with us and I can't get in touch with you. So knowing my meta's information. And yes, I would have to get consent from my meta for that information to be shared. As well as, their information, contacts, address, things like that. Also knowing when my husband is on his way back home, and then if he's spending the night. Now, a request of reassurance would be for him to text me good night, to text me good morning, and that he loves me. That's just a request of reassurance. Just because it's been 6 years, I'm still not good with overnights. I just accept it. I have a whole ritual and stuff. Like I play music, I paint, I exercise, I clean. Like I have a whole thing, but it's just I can't sleep. And it's not even like we sleep together. So I don't know what it is, but it's still a thing. So I just accept it and like, all right, I'm going to be tired the next day. So that next day I need to take a me day and rest. Okay. So that's where I'm at with that. And then let's see what else. But yeah, the details. I don't need to know everything. So he was telling me everything and it just was crossing my own emotional boundary, and it took me a long time to realize that I don't experience compersion like that, joy for his joy in the context of his relationships. So I was like, yeah, I just need to know the bare minimum just to make it feel like you're not creeping, and I'm in awareness of what's happening. And then, yeah, live your life. Do you, boo? I don't need to know everything. So then it kind of went into this don't ask, don't tell with the details. It's not an overall don't ask, don't tell, because I do know about his other partners. I know when he's going on dates. But yeah. So that is where I am. And I will leave you with 3 tips that I got from One Rule for Polyamorous Beginners from Medium is so yeah, they have 3 things. Speak before spoken to. Speak before spoken to means not keeping secrets or information to yourself. Transparency and openness and honesty is huge within polyamory, so respect that. Whether it's looking at a dating website, texting or sexting someone, calling them, meeting them, having interest in them, planning a date with them. Just let your partner know what's up, especially if something shifts. If like, hey, I met someone on Hinge and, we started talking, cool, update, right? And then it goes from, I'm in a relationship with this person, like some steps were missed. Please clarify how this jumped, So like, just, tell me before, I'm seeing all the actions, happening in front of my eyes, Disclose 99.9999999% of everything. So starting off, explain what you are doing to your partner in a way that accomplishes the same as if they were right there, seeing and reading everything, but without them seeing and reading everything. So again, you want to respect the consent of your other partner, but again, it's not feeling like you're hiding something, and your partner not feeling like something is hidden. Okay. For instance, you don't have to explain that you had exactly 3 orgasms in 2 particular positions, but there is a clear difference between hung out at his house and shagged on his dining room table. Well, and I'll say for me, one thing that gets some people in a fix is I assume sex is happening as long as the testing results have been respected and the barrier use. So I just assume sex is happening. A lot of people need the like sex happened, whether that's before or after. I think honestly that's a violation of privacy for the other person who's involved. Like, how would you feel if somebody's just sharing, you know? But then there's the like, well, you would talk to your friends about this, so where's the consent in that? So it's a little controversial, a little gray, but definitely be clear in figuring out within your dynamics what everybody's okay with, what everybody needs to know, where people comfort boundaries are, and things like that. And then the last thing, oh no, they have something else. Speak first. The other part of this rule is that you speak first, not wait for someone to ask. Sure, speak, but do it before spoken to. That's confusing. Again, there are differences between the 2 styles of talking. I might be open to having sex with Tim tonight is very different from I had sex with Tim 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So again, yeah, saying it may be to happen. I assume, because my husband is very sexual, so I'm just gonna assume. But maybe like, oh, how do you think your date's gonna go? And that conversation is like, oh, I'm feeling a sexual attraction. I'm open for the flexibility that maybe. But again, yeah, there needs to be clarity in what all is needed to know. So that being said, clarify what you don't want to hear. And this is what I had to come into understanding within myself. The rule is simple and self-reinforcing and demands over-communication until you learn how to cut the things that are unnecessary. And so, yeah, it's like disclose everything. Be transparent about everything. Over-communicate. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. I have boundaries. So one thing that was interesting was I needed to learn my boundaries within polyamory. And I didn't think that I could have them in the beginning just because it was so much unlearning of mononormativity and it wasn't, I was still unpacking everything. To be closed off in the beginning wouldn't have allowed me to explore where my comfort levels were, so to speak. So it's definitely, you got to take a lot of self-awareness. I have tons of journals dedicated to that period alone. Just figuring out myself a lot. And then my relationship with my husband, it was a lot going on. But yeah, let me know some of your boundaries in the comments below. Your boundaries within polyamory or ethical non-monogamy. And hopefully you had a great non-monogamy visibility week. Let me know if you have questions about some of the boundaries that I mentioned for myself and for my marriage with my husband. But yeah, remember, boundaries are something for you personally, and it's, hey, this is a boundary for me. Are you willing and able to respect this boundary? If not, either how can we compromise, or if we are incompatible in this area, what are the consequences? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, take care of you. Light and love.